All right. I wanted to start off the call saying thank you very much for coming and welcome to the webinar on increasing happiness and learning in life. Today's webinar will be recorded and it'll be sent out by email tomorrow, along with a link to any resources Dr. Fralick and Dr. Batiste will be talking about. And if you have questions throughout the call, please enter them in the chat window and we'll be answering them at the end. We've saved some time for a question and answer period. If you do have any technical difficulties in the meantime, please type them in right away or raise your hand and I will help to address them. Today's webinar is brought to you by Human Resources. Human Resources is a worldwide leader in the development and provision of online personal assessment, student success, and education and career development programs. And you can learn more at humanresources.com. We're very fortunate today to have Dr. Marsha Fralick and Dr. Seth Batiste on the call today to talk about ways to include happiness topics in your first year experience or college success class. Give you a bit of background on both of our esteemed speakers today. Dr. Marsha Fralick has been teaching college success courses for the past 43 years. She's the author of various textbooks on college and career success, including Native American and Hawaiian versions. Her college success program in the San Diego area received many awards from students and faculty and was designated an exemplary program by the California Community Colleges Board of Governors. Research on the program outcomes has shown a 28% increase in retention and an 80% success rate for students enrolled in her program. Thank you for joining us. And Dr. Seth Batiste has taught for over 15 years and is co-author of the 9th edition College and Career Success textbook. As Chief Strategist for the Lone Star District, he worked on Lone Star Community College's Best Start Quality Enhancement Plan, which became the cornerstone for the college's educational frameworks courses addressing student success. He's now CEO and Chief Strategist of Batiste Consulting, LLC. I'd like to welcome Seth and Marsha to today's call, and over to you, Seth.
Thank you for joining us. I'd like to mention that resources will be shared. Tamara will be sending them out tomorrow. You can also find them at my website, collegesuccess1.com. Just click on training notes. There you'll find a copy of the PowerPoint and any references that we mentioned. So here's my website. Just click on training notes.
And here are some key ideas for our presentation today. How will we achieve happiness in a post-pandemic world? What ideas can you use to achieve happiness? As we go through this presentation, make a list of ideas you can use to improve happiness. We will share ideas along the way. So why is happiness?
Go ahead, Seth, sorry.
Why is happiness so important? Well, happy people live longer. Happy people have better mental health. Happy people enjoy their jobs more, and happy people have rich and fulfilling social lives.
In working with my students over the years, I found out that happiness was commonly mentioned as an important goal. I can recall a specific time in my class when we were working on goal setting, and a young student said, well, all I really want in life is to be happy. And then I was thinking, okay, how does that fit with today's lesson? Because we're talking about goal setting has to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So that started me on a path of learning about happiness and how we could achieve it in life, not only for ourselves, but for our students.
So when we see here, we know that positive psychologists who study happiness tell us that happiness is not a goal. Achieving goals is one of the ways to achieve happiness. How can we help students achieve happiness?
Here are two of my favorite books on happiness, and I think they've had a big impact on my thinking and working with students to help them achieve the goal of happiness in life. And so that emphasis on achieving your goals leads to happiness, and then also some specific techniques and exercises that I've used with my students along the way. So you can find references to these textbooks at my website, and Tamara will be sending out a link to my website. Positive psychologists such as Martin Seligman, I've read several of his books, describe the difference between happiness and hedonism. And I think this is important for students to understand. So, what is a hedonist? The hedonist wants as many good moments and as few bad moments as possible, but it doesn't work. And why not? Because of a psychological principle called hedonistic adaptation. The more material possessions we have, the greater our expectations, and we no longer appreciate what we have. I have a practical example in my home. My husband just bought a new big screen, high definition TV, and it's so wonderful. It's like the football players are in our living room. So he invites his brother over to see the football games, and his brother goes out and buys a bigger, more modern TV. And then all of a sudden, my husband wasn't so happy with the TV that we have, even though it's wonderful. So I think that's a good example of hedonistic adaptation.
Psychologists remind us to choose happiness over hedonism. What does this mean? Well, choosing happiness means expressing gratitude, being optimistic, being employed, having positive self-esteem, enjoying leisure time, leisure activities, having good health, and also enjoying great friendships, like they do in Canada on Victoria Day. Happy late Victoria Day to our host of this presentation as well.
Thank you, Seth.
Today we will focus on some ideas from Sonia Lubomirsky, book on the How of Happiness. And it's a very practical book that you can take some ideas from this and use them in your first year experience courses. She suggests 12 happiness activities, which we will review today. And as we are reviewing these activities, make a note of ones that maybe you could use for yourself or for your students.
Well, the first activity is expressing gratitude. It is one of the most powerful happiness techniques. So, what is gratitude? Well, Robert Emmons says it is a felt sense of wonder, thankfulness, and appreciation for life.
So why is gratitude important? Here are a few ideas to think about when we're looking at why is it important. It helps us to savor positive life experiences.
Gratitude also helps us to increase self-esteem.
Coping with stress and trauma.
Encouraging moral behavior. You are more likely to help others at this point.
Building social bonds.
Diminishing negative emotions such as anger, bitterness, and greed.
Appreciating what you have.
And avoiding hedonistic adaptation.
Okay, so we're going to start our first interactive activity of the webinar, and it's something that you can do with your students. It can be a brief exercise. It could be something that you do to check in with your students once in a while. So here's the exercise. What are 5 things in life for which you are grateful or thankful? And so I'd like you to think about this and write some of your ideas in the chat window. So what are 5 things in life for which you are grateful or thankful? If you could just add one of them to the chat window, that would be wonderful. Sometimes I've asked students to keep a gratitude journal. Each week list at least 5 things for which you're grateful, or simply take some time to contemplate why you're grateful. Sometimes in the evening, before I go to bed, I stop to ponder What am I grateful for today? We've made it a Thanksgiving tradition. So while you're thinking of some ideas to put in the chat window, Seth and I will share a couple of ideas from our own personal lives. I'm going to start off with, I'm grateful for my good health and my family. Seth, what are you grateful for?
I'm definitely grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm also grateful not to have to get on a freeway to go to work.
That's wonderful. Okay, Tamara, do we have any ideas in our chat window?
We do. I've got a nice variety. We've got a loving spouse and daughter as one of them. I think every parent can certainly relate to that. We finally got some rain. We were talking just before this call started about weather patterns, so that totally makes sense. It can be a very exciting thing to get rain. Health is another one. And family, health, to be employed, hobbies, prayer, large number of items on here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your participation. It helps to know that other people are listening and participating in our webinar. And think about how you can use this with your students. It might be a great way to begin the week, begin the class. You could ask students to share one item. You could make it something very quick. I think it's important to help students start the class on a positive note, especially during the pandemic when many students and ourselves are struggling with mental health issues. Another way to increase happiness is to cultivate optimism. And that's a topic that I start off with in my textbook, How to Cultivate Optimism.
One of the ways you can cultivate optimism is being aware of your mindset. If you're interested, Carol Dweck has a book on this topic.
Here are just a few key ideas from the psychology of mindset. I think it's one of the most powerful ideas in higher education. I'm happy to note that most teachers are using this in their classes today. My granddaughter, when I asked her what she learned in class today or last week, she said, "Oh, we learned about mindset." And I thought, yay, that's great. So sometimes our students have negative thinking or a fixed mindset. And here's some ideas from that. Intelligence is fixed at birth. Increased effort does not lead to success. Roadblocks are an excuse to be absent.
So a positive way to look at this is intelligence is actually increased, or as you acquire knowledge through practice and effort, skills can be improved, and failure is an opportunity to learn something new.
So here's another student exercise that we'd like to share with you. We tend to focus on what does not go well and not enough on what goes right in our lives. What are 3 things that went well last week? Share your ideas. And again, in the chat window, if you could just write one thing that went well for you last week. Again, this could be a quick check-in in your class or an exercise that you do with your class or something that you think about before you go to bed at night or at some time during the day. Or if you're feeling stressed, what went well last week? So while you're thinking of ideas to write in the chat window, Seth and I will share some ideas from our lives. Last week, I had a family dinner to celebrate my granddaughter's birthday, and it was really great to see all the kids laughing and enjoying bubbles in the backyard and birthday cake. I also finished new curriculum on financial literacy that I've been working on. And so it was nice to reflect back on this project is done, and it turned out something that I'm proud of. Seth, can you share some things that went well for you last week?
I attended an orchestra concert where my daughter did such a fabulous job. They played a rendition of This Is Me from the musical The Greatest Showman. And there was a point where the entire orchestra stood up and walked around the auditorium. It was surreal. It was just magical. So I still play that. I uploaded it to TikTok. So if you want to follow me, but anyway, that went very well for her, which means it went well for me.
Tamara,
Thank
do we have
you.
any ideas in our chat window?
We do, and just to be clear, if anybody hasn't found the chat window yet, it is usually under Q&A, and down at the bottom, it might be a little hard to see, but you can type your message in there, and everybody, and I'll be able to see your answers. Thank you. So we have what went well last week. I went on a vacation, had safe travels, had people who had progress on their remodel, met with friends, booked a cruise, deep cleaned my house, final closing session for my leadership program, and my daughter's senior prom.
Awesome.
Okay, it's great to think about those things that went well, and that helps us to relax and increase happiness. Great ideas. Thank you for participating there. Let's move on to idea number 3.
With idea number 3, we want to avoid overthinking and social comparison. Overthinking is thinking too much, needlessly, passively, endlessly, and excessively pondering the meaning, causes, and consequences of your character, your feelings, and your problems. And this comes from Sonia Lubomirsky. Some of the negative consequences, she says, is that it increases sadness. It fosters negative thinking, impairs the ability to solve problems. It also decreases motivation and interferes with concentration.
One of the things I've noticed with students today is that using social media results in comparison, and this can cause stress and feelings of sadness. So social comparison is noticing our friends, coworkers, family members, even fictional characters on social media. They are smarter, richer, healthier, funnier, or more attractive than we are. Last week, my granddaughter FaceTimed me and she had more makeup on than she needed to have. And I said, how did you get that idea? I said, it's creative. And she says, well, I was on TikTok and all these girls have this makeup on. So I decided to put this makeup on. And so I was thinking about at a young age how girls especially are influenced by people on social media. So of course we had a conversation about social media and how it causes you to compare yourself to others. So what are some ways of dealing with overthinking and social comparison? One is become aware of the impacts of social media. It's something that we might be able to mention in our classrooms. There's a classic psychological trick, and that is yell stop when you notice that you are thinking, overthinking, and comparing yourself to others. You don't yell stop out loud. People might look at you strangely, but in your mind, you yell stop. Another idea, don't sweat the small stuff. Will it matter in a year? If so, begin taking small steps to resolve the issue.
And something I hope we will increase in our classrooms is something called acts of kindness. So practice them. And as leaders or classroom leaders, we hope to practice them, and people will then, the students will emulate them. So what does, or why does it work? Well, you view others more positively. You can connect with others. You appreciate your own good fortune. It leads to positive social consequences. You feel good about yourself, of course, so that is a benefit, and it causes a chain of kindness to kind of occur.
Oh, I know Seth actually practices this in his family, and I try to be mindful of practicing this as well. Seligman states that this exercise is the single most reliable momentary increase in well-being of any exercise he has tested. So I think that's a pretty strong statement there. So an example from last week, I thought about, okay, did I practice some acts of kindness? In Southern California, there's always lots of traffic. I remember just stopping and letting a person turn into traffic. Otherwise, they would have been stuck there for a long time. When people are trying to move into my lane, I'll ease off the accelerator, make sure they have space to get in the lane so that they can take their exit. Over the weekend, I enjoy gardening, and I do it as a hobby. And I was looking around my yard to make sure that I was keeping the weeds in control. And my yard, I have part of it shared with my neighbors. And so I was pulling weeds out of my yard and I looked over, they had weeds in their yard too. And so in 5 minutes, I pulled the weeds out of their yard too. And my neighbors are elderly, they're 80 years old. So I think it's hard for them. So it probably helped me more than it helped them because it made me feel good that day. And I know, Seth, you have examples from your family as well.
Well, not so long ago, the local elementary school where my two boys attend, they had something called Kindness Week. And I thought, that's a great idea since the boys weren't quite getting along at that time. And so we, each evening, we all would meet up as a family. And I told them, we're going to implement that every day, you got to tell me something kind you have done for the day. And after that week, it just kind of stuck. And so we've been doing that for some time now, where we look forward to sharing something kind we have seen. And I encourage my boys to not just share what they have done in terms of kindness, but also what they have seen done. And so that's kind of something we do. Something recently we did, and this goes to act. This is the first thought I had, is that with my daughter, she's 14 now, and we would periodically we go to Starbucks or a coffee place, and so we would ask the cashier to actually deduct the amount from my card for the car behind us. So we would be in a drive-through, and so we would pay for. Of course, I would check to see if it's a family of 12. No, I'm just kidding. But I would go. We would do that, and my daughter loves doing that sort of thing, where we just pay for a meal and no one knows who did it, sort of thing. So
those are great examples.
So, yeah,
we do have a couple other people on the call as well. We have someone had emailed some students to congratulate them on a grade that was earned in a specifically difficult course. Someone else rolled in a neighbor's trash can. Another person helped their mother with groceries. And someone else says they regularly share their food supplies with their gardener. They make time to call a friend and listen, open the door for someone at the store, and give a sincere compliment.
Hey, those are all great examples. Thinking about how you might use it in your first year experience classroom, maybe once a week, you could ask students to share an act of kindness that someone in the class did in order to practice this. So thanks for adding those examples in there. Let's move along to the next one. Number 5 is nurturing social relationships. I think during the pandemic, we realized how important those social relationships were. I know my husband and I pretty much stayed home for about a year because we're both older. And so we didn't want to take the risk of going out and socializing. And so I think it reduced our quality of life. So social relationships, making time for others, expressing admiration and appreciation, being supportive and loyal. Last week, I met up with a couple of friends who I've been friends with for 50 years now. And we went to an art museum and had lunch at the park. And I was thinking about how wonderful it is now that the pandemic is somewhat under control to be able to go out and socialize again.
that's awesome. One of the okay, great. So we have number 6 would be develop strategies for coping. And so with strategies for coping, we all know about these strategies. Can you increase some of them? Well, let's see. So meditation is one, mindfulness, breathing exercises, and exercise itself, as well as sleep.
Seth, what's your favorite one there? And then I'll talk about one of my favorite ones.
My favorite, one of the ones I do now, I have a very small, I don't have a full size basketball court behind my house, but we have a slab where I get out daily, almost daily, to play basketball, to get my heart rate up for a while. So exercise is extremely important for me. It reduces my stress level. I love to stay busy, but it's my way of balancing things out. And I'm horrible at sleep.
So here's one of my favorites, and that's mindfulness. It's taking the time to notice your environment, and it works because it provides distraction from worry. I actually attended a workshop on mindfulness at the FYE conference in Orlando this year. And there are actually some first year experience courses that are based on mindfulness. And so they would take students on field trips and walk through the campus and ask students to notice their environment and then come back in the classroom and talk about what they noticed. I practice mindfulness each day as I take a walk in the morning. This morning, it was foggy here in San Diego. I walked through a eucalyptus grove. I could smell the smell of the eucalyptus as I walked by. I noticed some birds flying around. I focused my attention on that. I noticed various plants that were growing and didn't think about any worries, but took the time to focus on the environment and enjoying being outside. So that's my favorite one. Another one is grit is a powerful strategy for coping. At one of the FYE conferences, I heard Angela Duckworth speak, and so I really liked her ideas about grit as a coping mechanism that I think can increase happiness and success. So she defines grit as passion and perseverance. So just a few key ideas on grit here.
So one idea here is those who are gritty keep going after challenges or even failure.
It is simply a never give up attitude.
What we accomplish may depend more on our passion and perseverance than our innate talent.
Talent is how quickly your skills improve when you invest effort.
And without effort, your talent is nothing more than your unmet potential.
Effortful training is more important than natural talent. It takes 10,000 hours or more to become an expert. If you look at people that students might admire, you could have them research how many hours a week they practice. For example, famous basketball players, football players, artists, musicians, and you can see that they spend quite a bit of time in practice.
And those who, with the growth mindset, are typically grittier. Number 7, learn to forgive. When I see that word forgive, some years ago when I was in high school, I remember Nelson Mandela when he had gotten out of prison after 30 years. And the first thing one of his first speeches was that was on forgiveness and the need to forgive. And so forgive yourself and others.
That's a powerful example, Seth. It's hard to imagine how you could be imprisoned and then the first thing you think about is forgiveness. But for your own mental health, I think it's important.
Absolutely.
The next idea is to increase flow activity. So what do we mean by flow? Flow is a state of intense absorption and involvement in the present moment. It's characteristic of happy people. The key to creating flow is establishing a balance between skills and challenges. And to maintain flow, we must test ourselves in challenging situations. I think this is an idea that we can use in career development as well as happiness. What are the things that you do that you don't notice the time going by? Are there some activities that you can incorporate in your life that are flow activities that takes you away from the everyday thoughts and worries? I've recently taken up watercolor painting, and on Saturday I intended to spend an hour painting some tropical flowers, and 4 hours went by before I finished the project, and I didn't even think about it. The hours just flew by. So what are some flow activities that you could enjoy and help students become aware of this concept?
Number 9 is savor life's joys. The ability to savor positive experiences in life is one of the most important ingredients of happiness.
So let's all take some time here to maybe think about some ordinary experiences that we might be able to savor, that helps us to transport ourselves to a happier time and place. We can replay happy days, celebrate good news, be open to beauty and excellence, be mindful. So let's do some brainstorming on life's joys. This is another exercise that you can do with students. So let me brainstorm here. I'll start it with one of the things that makes me happy about my husband is he makes me laugh every day. This morning, as we were on our walk, I started coughing for no reason, and some crows were flying overhead. He looks at the crows and he says, "Be careful of this woman, she has COVID." And it just makes me laugh. So I savor those positive moments when we can laugh together. Seth, do you have an example?
One of my fears about being the father of a Boy Scout was that I was never in scouting. And wood making, anything, we didn't have a male figure around. And I come from a single mother. And so when my son joined scouting, I'm like, I need to know how to put wood together and use a nail and hammer, something I'd never done. And so one of my joys today is figuring it out. And so, and my son being just so happy with something, that a woodsman would probably laugh at, but we kind of learn and we're joyful together. And he calls it creating memories, which is what I should be called it.
That's a great example. Another example is I look at my yard and it's springtime in California and all my plants are blooming. And so I take time each day to look out at my yard and notice which plants are blooming. So I think these plants are examples of some of my life's joys. Do we have any examples in the chat window?
We do. We have the taste of a really good apple, the warmth of sun on a chilly day, dinner with my sisters last week. It was so joyful. Yesterday, my 19-year-old son chose to spend time with me. I savor that each time he does.
Okay.
All my students this semester did well in class, and seeing my kids accomplish a challenge.
Okay, those are all great examples. And so this is another exercise you could do with your students to periodically brainstorm what are life's joys today, this week.
So if you have goals, commit to them. An aim in life is the only fortune worth finding. Robert Louis Stevenson. He's an author that when I taught elementary school, we had a lot of his books and even told his story, his life story. And another one is Find a Happy Person and You Will Find a Project. And that's by Sonia Lubomirsky. Working towards a goal is important to well-being as its attainment. Goals provide structure and meaning to our lives. Goals help us to master our time. Goals also help us to accomplish other goals, and they help us to do it with grit.
So I know most of you probably do some goal setting exercises in your class, but maybe what's new here is that working on a goal, setting goals is one of the paths to happiness. So you might add that in to your lesson for the day. So some examples of goals. One of the goals that I have been recommitting myself to recently is to maintain my fitness. So I've started reading about nutrition and preparing my own foods at home. So that's a goal in progress. That's probably been a goal my whole life, but I've started working on that goal even more. So Seth, what's an example of a goal that you're working on?
Well, I'm experimenting with this goal setting thing with my pre-college teen and having her set goals. And one of the goals she set was to get into the top orchestra at her school, which is it's a premier school for the fine arts. And so she wrote, I told her first to write it down, and you can get close to achieving it, if not achieving it itself. And so she, towards the end, knowing her personality, I knew that once we entered that stress realm, she would start to waver with the goal. But because she had written it down along with her other goals that she had accomplished, she has now submitted her recital recording. And so this is, I think, setting goals and writing them down and going through that process is extremely important. My grandmother once said that, and it's a very famous quote, that if you can aim really high, if you miss, you're still among the stars. And so I still, even though that was, it's cheesy, it's corny, it's something that I live by even today. It's just to keep expectations high with goal setting. Well, number 11 is here is practice religion or spirituality. This provides social support and a sense of identity. It helps people deal with trauma, and it also helps people find meaning and purpose in life. It provides hope. It promotes forgiveness.
You know, Seth, that you have told me before that you attend church regularly, and
I do.
and tell us why you do that.
My grandmother. Well, I attend church on a regular. I don't consider myself religious like many people do, but by comparison, if someone is not attending church, then I'm definitely the religious one in the group. But I do that because I learn a lot. I learn a lot about how to make myself better. I'm a big proponent of getting better in life. That life is not about being perfect. Life is about getting closer to your goal of toward perfection, but just know that you're always moving. It's always a moving pendulum, and so you're always trying to get better at something. And so I look at that. I promote that with my children. If you make a mistake, think about how it's made, and then what are some steps that we can do to minimize that, or perhaps eliminate it. And so always looking at ways you can improve something or a process. INTJ.
And notice it says religion and or spirituality, and I think I would put myself in that category of being a spiritual person. I don't attend any organized religion, but I do think it's important to find your purpose in life. One of the ways to find a happy career is to find a job that helps other people and makes life better. So it's taking a larger view of life, and that there is hope and purpose in life. It's part of my spirituality.
Something that we need to take care to think about in a college classroom is how students might feel about certain things. In this case, about how they look, their appearance, and taking care of themselves might be extremely important. Of course, we know they tend to go through this through maybe their middle high school years, but it still happens in college as well. So taking care of the body is important. It's number 12. Can you add any of these ideas to your list of things to improve? Exercise increases self-esteem. That's a given. And then it also provides opportunities for that flow we mentioned. Spend more time outside, breathing in that air. Roll the windows down as you drive to work or on your way home, just to especially in the morning. If you're in Texas like I am, don't do that because you will suffocate. So, but if it's in the morning, you have a good breeze. That's awesome. Or late at night. But learn the basics of good nutrition. This is something I need to do. I know that I need to do the penultimate one, and then the ultimate one here is to get enough sleep. That's two. The last two is definitely me that I'm working on. I'm actually working on getting enough sleep.
Take a look at this list and see if there are some items that you could maybe put on an intention list. In the next slide, we're going to do a review of these 12 ideas for improving happiness and challenge you to write some intention statements for the future. Again, you could also do this with your students. So here are the 12 ideas from Sonia Lubomirsky. We've given examples of this, and thank you for your participation here and adding some ideas. So while you're thinking about some intention statements just state I intend to, and it helps raise your awareness and it helps you put into practice some of these ideas. So While you're thinking of some ideas to put in the chat window, Seth and I can share some of ours. Here's one of mine. I intend to savor life joys at the end of each day. Maybe walk around my yard, look at all those plants. I intend to take care of my body by learning more about nutrition. I intend to increase flow activities, keep working on those art projects. Seth, can you share any intention statements?
7 and 12. So I intend to learn to forgive quickly, so more expeditiously, if you will. And then number 12, I intend to take care of my, increase the activities in a manner that takes care of my body and health. I'm anxious to see what the audience has to say.
Tamara, do you have any ideas in the chat window?
We do. Thanks so much for participating, everybody. We have get more sleep. I intend to practice more random acts of kindness and to savor life's joys. Thank you for this wonderful seminar. I intend to practice positive thinking, intend to exercise more and take care of my emotional health.
Okay, great ideas. And again, try this exercise with your students to increase their awareness and happiness in learning and life. Notice the learning in there. I try to make learning a joyful experience in my course, using those ideas from positive psychology. The new 9th edition of our textbook, College and Career Success, includes positive psychology and finding happiness in life. If you'd like to take a look at our textbook, you can send me an email at marsha@marshafralick.com. I can also do a demo of the interactive online version that I use with my students at Cuyamaca Community College in the San Diego area. So just contact me if you're interested. Here's our contact information if you have questions. My contact information, marsha@marshafralick.com, and my website, College Success 1. If you click on training notes, you can see references for today and a copy of the PowerPoint. And Seth, would you like to go over your contact information?
Absolutely. I see my email. It's a very simple email. It's it's my first name, Seth@batisteconsulting.us. And so that's the email. And then of course you see my website. And if you have any questions for me, certainly shoot me an email and I'll be happy to speak with you.
Seth, do I have your email written incorrectly here?
I don't see it on this end, but it's easy to remember. It's Seth@Batiste Consulting. And that's my, what I'm seeing here is my website.
So I do have, at College Success 1, I have your contact information. I have both of your email addresses there. So Tamara will send that link out to everyone tomorrow.
Absolutely. You can also go to humanresources.com, and when you click on post-secondary, you'll see college and career success listed there, and you can learn more about Dr. Batiste and Dr. Fralick's college and career success 9th edition there as well.
And here's the email for Seth on the bottom of this slide.
Great.
It's all good.
I'd like to invite questions. If people have any questions, I do have a couple comments I'd like to read out. But if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A, and we do have some time to address those questions for you. I do see Dr. Fralick and Dr. Batiste. Thank you for this fantastic learning experience. And Dr. Fralick, your textbook has helped me for over a decade teaching at local community colleges and at CSULA. Thanks a million. And each one of these webinars are informative and well done. Thank you for your time and sharing your expertise. See if
Thank you for those
any
comments.
questions.
As I mentioned before, the best careers are the ones that help other people. That's a way to be happy. So thank you for all the kind comments.
And thank you, Marsha, for your service. The 45.
We would love to hear any of your comments or questions as you work with your students to increase happiness. I think it's a very important topic, especially during the pandemic. I know our students are suffering with mental health problems, so anything we can do to help mental health issues. So I'm wondering if anybody has questions about the students in your classrooms and how you might apply these techniques, or questions in general. Both Seth and I have worked with students for many years. Maybe we could offer some ideas, or we could share some ideas of things that you have worked that you found to be successful.
Do you have another comment of, I cannot wait to implement many of these ideas? Thank you all. And I do see a question. What are some ways I can incorporate happiness into my first year experience curriculum?
Okay, so I think that you could put it as one of your student learning objectives. And you could take a look at Sonia's textbook if you wanted to explore these ideas quickly. I don't think that you need to spend a lot of time on these topics. I think they are short exercises that you could do in 5 to 10 minutes. The same exercises we did in the webinar, the PowerPoint is available online. Tamara will send you a link. So just checking in with your students at the beginning of the day. Tell me about an act of kindness that you did last week. Let's take 5 minutes to savor life's joys. Let's take 5 minutes to think about things that we are grateful for. So these can just be quick exercises that lift the mood of your class, and then we can talk about it. I do think that it's important to look at these ideas from positive psychology and look at these ideas on happiness, because really what students want, why they're going to college, is to make their life better, to live a happy life. That's the ultimate goal that we probably want for ourselves and that our students want. So knowing that, being familiar with positive psychology, some ideas about what is happiness, how do you achieve it, that would be a great gift to your students.
And in
Do
thinking
you have,
about,
go ahead, Seth, sorry.
I'll quickly say that in thinking about happiness and how it complements wellness and the concept of wellness, one of the 8 dimensions of wellness is something called intellectual wellness. And so this is where students who are stimulated and you tap into their curiosities on a daily basis, you can actually improve their happiness and coming to class, their happiness with learning. And how does that work with each student? Well, real world, allowing them to apply content from the course to real world concepts can be very helpful. And if it becomes an issue, we mentioned mental health earlier, and I just wanted to say that the federal government has given guidance on how colleges who have gotten COVID-19 federal dollars, I think 76 billion, they can now use that money, those funds, for student mental health and mental wellness. So I thought, so you can ask your campus administrator about that as well. Go ahead.
Great, that's an excellent tip. So we have some examples of what people have done. Someone has had students make cards to show gratitude to someone in their lives, and they seem to enjoy the activity very much.
That's one of the activities that Seligman recommends, and I haven't actually done this, but I think I should give it a try. And that is to think in your life about people that have made a positive impact on your life, and to write a card or a letter to them, thanking them for it. I think that would be a great gift to the other person, and also increase your own happiness because it focuses on that gratitude aspect. So that idea of writing cards is a really good one, and it's actually recommended in Seligman's book.
Great. And we have one last thing, which is I try to incorporate your lessons into all my classes, which includes business communications, interpersonal communications, ethics, intercultural communications, and other courses, and that students enjoy it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So unless either of you had some parting comments, I want to show my gratitude today for Dr. Batiste and Dr. Fralick today, and presenting and teaching us providing some insight into these examples and on happiness, and hope you can take that forward into your teaching today. Oh, we have one more question. Sorry, I don't want to cut anyone off. I have a question of Dr. Batiste. Can you expand briefly on the concept of intellectual, what was it that you'd said?
Wellness.
Wellness,
Intellectual
yes.
wellness. It falls under, there's something called 8 dimensions of wellness. I don't know them all offhand, but they include career and occupational wellness. So they're the same thing. They include things like our emotional wellness. And so look, if you look up 8 dimensions of wellness, underneath that, there's something called intellectual wellness. And so that is, and you don't want to take any, the reason why I say look up all 8 dimensions, I don't have them in front of me, is because they're integrated. And so if you start to lack on one, there's this imbalance, so to speak, according to researchers. So it's something that I'm writing on currently, and so I'm excited about that. And I immediately saw how it connected to Dr. Fralick's concepts of happiness and this particular webinar. But 8 dimensions of wellness. It's actually supported by, I think it's SAMHSA. I might be saying that incorrectly, but it's our federal government has a mental health component that actually promotes these 8 dimensions of wellness.
One of the things I always try to promote is joy of learning. There was a comment at our birthday dinner from my granddaughter, and I was talking about the new project I wrote, and she says, "So you're the person that makes us do all those homework assignments." And so I said, yes, that's true. But what about the joy in learning? And what about the impact on your life? And so I tried to paint a more positive picture of that. And I do that with my students as well. It's that learning is an opportunity. Learning is an opportunity to improve your life and attain happiness in life. And finding some personal meaning is so important. So if we can help our students do that, we'll help them be more successful.
And I have and I'm not to interject too much here. Here are the 8 dimensions. Emotional wellness. These are all promoted together, by the way. So number 1 is emotional, then physical. That's everything Marsha talked about today. You'll see it here. And social, occupational / career. We need that work-life balance. Financial wellness. A lot of people don't know there's a correlation between our financial health and our mental health. And there's something called spiritual wellness, environmental wellness, and then the intellectual wellness. And they're not in any particular order. So I encourage you to, if you're interested in dimensions of wellness, they all support happiness.
One of the emphasis in all of our textbooks is careers, because I think it's important for students to understand their personal strengths and apply it to the job market. Our career has a big impact on our happiness. So if we can help students to choose careers that connect to flow activities, connect to their interests, connect to their personal strengths, then that's another way of achieving happiness in life. So we can't neglect that important part of the curriculum, and that is careers and choosing a major based on your personal strengths and interests.
Great. Well, and with that, I think we'll wrap up today's webinar. As we've mentioned, you'll receive an email with a link to the resources discussed today and to a recording of the webinar. And I hope you're able to take some of the advice and have a fabulous day. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.